Before I started learning to code, I was hearing all the time about a mentor. Get a mentor, use a mentor. Mentorship is the key to learning to code. So how do you find a mentor? Let's talk about it. Let's begin by talking about what a mentor is or what a mentor should be. A mentor should be someone who takes a very personal interest in you and in your development as a coder. So what does that actually mean? That means they might either provide ongoing sessions or ongoing support, be that through video or text, to help you develop as a coder. There's someone you can go to with questions, usually someone who is, of course, more experienced than you, and it should be a situation where they take an interest in more than just the code itself, but also in your personal development, both in terms of people skills and perhaps as a career as well. So these are kind of the core things that I feel like a mentor should have. There are two other things, I suppose, that are important but not necessary. The first is that you should really vibe. For those who either don't know what that means or are not native English speakers, that's the idea that you should be on the same wavelength. You should just get along well. It should feel very natural and easy. The best kind of mentorship should just feel like a friendship. It's like a friendship with extra steps. That's the one thing. The other thing, which is great but not always necessary, is pair programming. Now, especially if you're self-taught or you're a bootcamp graduate or someone who doesn't have the more formal support of a workplace or an educational institution, having a mentor or someone who you can pair program with will give you an idea of how real-world development works, because pair programming is an essential part of real-world development, but it also gives you an insight into how someone else might solve a problem differently to you. This is the one big thing that I really missed when I was learning by myself versus learning in a course, was the ability to actually have a problem in front of you, and I knew how to solve that problem for myself. It came quite naturally to me. But what was great by working with other people is that suddenly I was hearing, well, hang on, we could also do it this way. And I would go, oh, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. We could go about solving it that way. Let's try that instead. And it expands your mind, it expands your horizons and lets you see different ways of going about things. Now, especially if you're newer to coding, this means that a mentor can actually catch some bad habits early. So if, I don't know, maybe you always write if-else statements and you never write switch statements, well, that's not terrible, it's not the end of the world, but a mentor could catch that and say, okay, why did you decide to do it that way and not with a switch instead? Because then we can save X lines of code, or that is more efficient in this way. These are things that a mentor can kind of catch for you and help you work through. So that's what a mentor should be. Let's now talk about how to find one. When I think about how to find a mentor, there are kind of three ways I would say you can find a mentor. The first is, of course, if you are already employed in tech, usually most companies will either have a mentorship program, or you'll already have an idea of some senior developers or people who are in these awesome positions who you already feel comfortable talking to about code and about your own development. In that situation, it's really as simple as going to them and saying, hey, I've really enjoyed talking about this stuff with you. Would you mind if we met each week to talk about this, or every 2 weeks to talk about this, and go through any problems or interesting code bits I've written, and like just make this a little more formal, and just see how they react. Most of the time people will say yes. Of course, sometimes people are too busy and they will say no. That's fine. Just keep trying. But I would say, yeah, that's the first way, is kind of through your employer if you already have one. Of course, not everyone is already employed, and a lot of the people who will be watching this video, I know, will be people who are looking to find a career in tech and do not actually already have one. So let's talk about the two ways that could apply to you as someone who does not have an employer who you can approach. The first way is that there are actually formal programs that exist out there. There are different Discord communities and special interest groups. There are plenty of women in tech groups, for example. Lots of these places require some form of membership fee, and you can then actually pay and be in these communities and have access to mentors that way. I personally have never done this, so I don't really have any recommendations, but if you are someone who is found a mentor or is part of one of these more structured communities, I really encourage you to comment below so that other people can see and find out about them. This is one place where I am encouraging self-promotion. So if you're someone who runs one of these communities, please also comment below and let people know. I do feel like there is a place for these. I know some people see them as like, well, you know, why do you need them when there are so many free communities? But I do feel like there is a place for more structured communities, and mentorship is one example of where that can be really useful, because you can have actual people who have signed up to be mentors and other people who go in wanting to be mentees, and together you can find each other in a more structured environment where you both know what to expect. So I feel like that's worth exploring if that's something that you're interested in. There is one other free program that I have been a member of once, I admit, only once, which is called CodeBar, CodeBar. CodeBar runs free sessions for the Berlin branch. I think it's every 2 weeks, where mentors and mentees can come together and work on kind of a set CodeBar curriculum for learning web development. But not just web development, really, it can be just about anything. So that's also an environment where you can come in as well and find a mentor that way. However, I would say that's kind of like a volunteer-free program, so you might have a different mentor each week. It's not the same kind of thing as like a structured, you are my mentor, I am your mentee, this is going to be a weekly thing situation. But you never know, you might find someone who is interested in that in one of those communities as well. So that's way number 2, more structured, formal programs. The third one is actually how I think it happens most of the time, and how I'm going to encourage you to go about finding a mentor. And that is kind of naturally through your network. Now, if you're new to tech, I can already hear you kind of going, what network? I don't have a network. What even is a network? Well, I've got some good news for you. I have a whole video about how to network on Twitter and how to find people who have similar interests to you. But I will say that there are plenty of free Discord communities. When I was working on the Odin project, I kind of had a quasi-mentor through that, just someone I was talking to quite often, reviewing things quite often, who was helping me very often. We never formalized it, but I consider him my mentor. And a lot of the times that's how the relationship kind of happens. You're in a community, you're talking to people, and then you find that there's just that one person who you get along with that little bit better than other people, who takes a bit more of an interest in you, and over time you develop the kind of relationship where you can just ask them those questions. I would say take advantage of social media. Discord is a great place for finding coding communities. Twitter, of course, you all know that I'm really active on Twitter, so also feel free to jump on there. Blog posts is a great way to draw people to you as well. LinkedIn, even things like Instagram and TikTok nowadays are places where you can start connecting to other developers. And when you do that, you will find that there will be people who are senior to you who take an interest in you and your development. And when that happens, you can then start asking a few more questions. And if you really want to, you can formalize it, or you can just have it like me, where you kind of know they're your mentor, they kind of know you're their mentee, but you never really say it out loud, which is fine, because in the end, you're getting the benefits of mentorship anyway. So that would be my main piece of advice in how to go about it. You can, of course, openly ask for a mentor, but you'll find most of the time just saying, hey, I need a mentor. Does anyone want to mentor me? You'll probably get no's because no one knows you. This is why it's always better to have it kind of come out of a friendship. Oops, excuse me. Have it come out of a friendship, or have it come out of some sort of prior interaction on social media or similar. Of course, I've got my head in the COVID mindset right now, but I should also say meetups, events, go to meetup.com, see if there's anything in your area. If meeting up in physical real world scenarios is possible for you in your area, then I would advise doing that. I know it can be intimidating, but that also connects you really quickly to people with similar interests who might take an interest in you. So that would be my main piece of advice. Branch out, take a few risks, send off a few messages, just get to know people, and you will find someone who is a good mentor for you. And if that in itself sounds too scary, or you don't feel like you could do that, maybe you're not particularly extroverted and it sounds a bit too intimidating for you, that's fine. But then I would start looking into those more formal communities, into more formal memberships, and more formal programs for finding those people. So hopefully that helps clarify some questions that you might have had around mentorship and how it tends to happen. If you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments. If I get enough other questions, I'd be happy to make another video on this topic. And of course, you can always follow me on Twitter. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.